The camcorder's red recording light blinked in the corner of Aikman's boxing gym. 7:43 in the evening, February 16th, 1988. Curtis Reed, the 57-year-old janitor, had been mopping the same spot near the equipment room for 3 minutes, watching 10 white men in bomber jackets and steel-toed boots form a semicircle around the heavy bags. Gerald "Doc" Williams didn't look up from wrapping Tommy Morrison's hands. 62 years old, 5'9", 150 pounds. Doc had trained fighters in Kansas City for 34 years. He'd wrapped the hands of champions, contenders, and dreamers. On this Tuesday night, he was wrapping the hands of a 19-year-old white kid from Jay, Oklahoma, who'd walked into his gym 8 months earlier with 14 amateur wins and a question. "Will you teach me?" The leader of the group stepped forward. Danny Kozlowski, 26 years old, 6'2", 230 pounds. Shaved head, swastika tattoo visible above his collar. He'd been arrested 9 times in Kansas City, convicted twice, served 18 months total. His voice cut through the rhythmic sound of speed bags and jump ropes. "You got 60 seconds, old man." The gym went quiet. 12 other boxers stopped training. Curtis Reed's mop froze mid-stroke. His hand moved slowly to the camcorder he'd been using to film his grandson's basketball games. He pressed record. Doc Williams finished the last wrap on Morrison's left hand. He tied it off with the precision of 3 decades. He didn't look up. 60 seconds for what? Kozlowski smiled. "To get your black ass out of our city." The 9 men behind him laughed. Curtis counted them through the camcorder's viewfinder. 10 total. Ages ranging from early 20s to mid-30s. 4 carried axe handles. 2 had chains wrapped around their fists. All wore the same insignia on their jackets. A local white supremacist group that had been terrorizing North Kansas City for 6 months. Tommy Morrison stood up. 6'2", 222 pounds. Undefeated in 17 professional fights. 14 knockouts. He'd grown up in Gravette, Arkansas, raised by a white family in a town of 2,000. His great-great-uncle was John Wayne, the actor. Tommy had the same blue eyes, the same square jaw, but he didn't have the same views. "Doc's not going anywhere." Kozlowski turned to face him. "This doesn't concern you, movie star." "Actually," Morrison said, his voice flat and cold, "it does." Doc Williams finally looked up. He'd seen this moment before. Different city, different decade, same hate. In 1956, in St. Louis, he'd been 29 years old, training his first professional fighter, a black middleweight named James Crawford. 4 white men had walked into the gym and told him to leave. James had stepped between them. They'd beaten James so badly, he never fought again. Doc had carried that memory for 32 years. "Tommy," Doc said quietly, "you don't have to do this." Morrison didn't take his eyes off Kozlowski. "Yes, I do." Curtis Reed adjusted the camcorder angle. His hands shook slightly, but he kept filming. Years later, in 2011, he would say in an interview, "I knew something was going to happen. I just didn't know it would change everything." Kozlowski checked his watch. 45 seconds, old man. Morrison took 1 step forward. "Here's how this works. You have 2 choices. 1, you walk out that door right now, and this ends. 2, you stay, and I finish this." One of the younger skinheads, Rick Sullivan, 23 years old, looked uncertain. "Danny, maybe we should—" "Shut up," Kozlowski snapped. He turned back to Morrison. "You think you scare us? There's 10 of us, pretty boy." Morrison's voice didn't change. "I counted. You have 30 seconds to decide." The other boxers in the gym began to move slowly toward the walls. They'd all heard stories about Morrison's power. In his last fight, 3 weeks earlier, he'd knocked out Lorenzo Boyd in the first round with a right hand that traveled less than 8 inches. Boyd had been unconscious before he hit the canvas. Doc Williams stood up and placed one hand on Morrison's shoulder. "Son, if you do this, there's no going back." Morrison finally looked at his coach. "Doc, you taught me everything I know. You never asked where I came from. You never cared what color I was. You saw something in me when nobody else did." He turned back to Kozlowski. "These men disrespected you. That means they disrespected me." Kozlowski laughed. 15 seconds, old man." Doc Williams removed his hand from Morrison's shoulder. He stepped back 3 paces. He looked at Curtis Reed, still filming from the corner. Their eyes met. Doc nodded once. Curtis understood. Whatever happened next needed to be documented. Kozlowski raised his voice. "Time's up. Last chance, boy. Walk away or—" Morrison hit him. The right hand landed on Kozlowski's jaw with the sound of a baseball bat hitting a watermelon. Kozlowski's head snapped back. His legs buckled. He was unconscious before he fell, his body crumpling like a dropped coat. The 9 remaining skinheads stood frozen for exactly 2 seconds. Then they rushed forward. What happened in the next 6 minutes became the most watched bootleg video in Kansas City history. Curtis Reed's camcorder captured every second. Rick Sullivan swung an axe handle at Morrison's head. Morrison slipped left, the wood missing by inches, and drove a left hook into Rick's liver. Rick dropped to his knees, vomiting. Morrison's right uppercut caught him under the chin. Rick's head snapped back and he collapsed backward, unconscious. 2 men came from Morrison's right side. Frank Chen and Lou Becker, both 27 years old, both carrying chains. Morrison stepped into Frank, jamming his attack, and threw a 3-punch combination. Left hook to the body, right hook to the body, left hook to the head. Frank's eyes rolled back. As he fell, Morrison pivoted and caught Lou's chain-wrapped fist in mid-swing. He yanked Lou forward and delivered a right cross that broke Lou's nose in 3 places. Blood exploded across Lou's face. Morrison's left hook finished him. 4 down, 6 remaining. Curtis Reed's camcorder shook, but he kept filming. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. The remaining 6 skinheads spread out, trying to surround Morrison. Doc Williams watched from against the wall, his face expressionless. The other boxers in the gym stood silent, witnesses to something they would talk about for the rest of their lives. James "Jimmy" Patterson, 31 years old, the second in command of the group, pulled a knife from his boot. 8-inch blade, serrated edge. "Let's see you box this, motherfucker." Morrison didn't hesitate. He grabbed a 16-ounce training glove from the nearby bench and wrapped it around his right hand in one fluid motion. As Jimmy lunged forward with the knife, Morrison sidestepped and brought the glove down on Jimmy's wrist like a hammer. Bones cracked. The knife clattered to the floor. Morrison's left hook, his bare left hand, caught Jimmy on the temple. Jimmy's legs went liquid. He fell face first onto the canvas. 5 remaining. They attacked together, coordinated, desperate. Morrison moved like he was in the ring. Slip, counter, slip, counter. A right hand dropped Marcus Webb. A left hook crumpled David Torres. An uppercut lifted Sean Murphy off his feet. Each punch was precise, calculated, devastating. The last 2, brothers named Craig and Dennis Walsh, 24 and 26 years old, looked at each other, at their 8 friends unconscious on the gym floor, at Tommy Morrison, standing in the center of the carnage, barely breathing hard. Craig dropped his axe handle. "We're done." Morrison shook his head. "No, You came here to hurt Doc. You don't get to walk away." Dennis raised his hands. "Please, man. We're sorry." Morrison crossed the distance between them in 3 steps. His right hand sent Craig into the wall. His left hand put Dennis on the floor next to his brother. 6 minutes and 14 seconds from the first punch. 10 men unconscious. Tommy Morrison standing in the center of Aikman's boxing gym with wrapped hands and 1 training glove, unmarked, uninjured. Curtis Reed stopped recording. The red light went dark. His hands were shaking so badly he nearly dropped the camcorder. Doc Williams walked slowly to Tommy Morrison. He looked at the 10 bodies scattered across the gym floor. He looked at his fighter, the 19-year-old kid from Oklahoma, who'd just dismantled 10 grown men in less time than a boxing round. "You okay, son?" Morrison nodded. "You?" "I'm fine." Doc paused. "But you need to leave. Now, before the police come." Morrison looked confused. "Doc, they attacked us. This was self-defense." Doc Williams smiled sadly. "Tommy, you're a white kid who just beat up 10 white men defending a black coach in Kansas City, Missouri, in 1988. You think the police are going to see it that way?" Curtis Reed stepped forward, holding the camcorder. "I got it all on tape, Doc. Every second." Doc looked at the camera, then back at Curtis. "Good. Keep it safe. Don't show it to the police. Show it to our people." Tommy Morrison started to protest, but Doc cut him off. "Listen to me. You did the right thing, but the right thing doesn't always protect you. Go home. I'll handle this." Morrison left through the back door. Curtis Reed took the camcorder home and made 3 copies of the tape that night. 1 went to his pastor. 1 went to his cousin who ran a barbershop on Troost Avenue. 1 stayed hidden in his basement. Within 48 hours, that tape had circulated through every black neighborhood in Kansas City. The police arrived at Aikman's gym at 8:17 that evening, 34 minutes after Curtis Reed's 911 call. They found 10 men regaining consciousness, all with similar stories. They'd come to the gym to work out and were attacked by multiple assailants. None of them mentioned Doc Williams. None of them mentioned Tommy Morrison. The detective in charge, Robert Henshaw, 49 years old, didn't believe a word. But without witnesses willing to testify, without video evidence the police could use, without any way to prove what really happened, he closed the case as mutual combat, insufficient evidence. What the police didn't know was that Curtis Reed's tape was already changing Kansas City. In black churches that Sunday, pastors talked about it. In barbershops and beauty salons, people watched it. In living rooms and community centers, families gathered around televisions to see the 19-year-old white boxer who stood up for his black coach. The skinhead organization that Kozlowski led, a group called the Kansas City White Front, collapsed within a week. Members quit. Leaders disappeared. Their headquarters, a rented warehouse on Independence Avenue, was found abandoned on February 23rd, 7 days after the gym incident. Someone had spray-painted a message on the wall. Doc Williams stays. 3 of the 10 men who attacked the gym turned themselves into police within 10 days, confessing to unrelated crimes from vandalism to assault. They all cited the same reason: "I need to get right with God." 7 others left Kansas City entirely. Rick Sullivan moved to Oregon. Frank Chen went to California. Lou Becker disappeared and was never heard from again. Danny Kozlowski, the leader, spent 3 weeks in the hospital with a broken jaw, fractured eye socket, and severe concussion. When he was released, he found his apartment ransacked and eviction papers on his door. He left Kansas City on March 9th and never returned. Tommy Morrison continued training with Doc Williams. They worked together for 8 more years. Morrison won the WBO Heavyweight Championship in 1993, defeating George Foreman. Doc Williams was in his corner for 43 of Morrison's 48 professional fights. Curtis Reed kept his camcorder tape in a safety deposit box. He showed it only to people he trusted, always with the same warning. This is proof. Proof that sometimes, just sometimes, somebody stands up. In 2011, at age 80, Curtis Reed gave his only public interview about that night. He was in hospice care, dying of lung cancer. A local documentary filmmaker had heard rumors about the tape and tracked him down. "Why did you film it?" the filmmaker asked. Curtis coughed, his breathing labored. "Because I'd seen too many times when good people got hurt and nobody saw. Nobody witnessed. I was a janitor, invisible. But that camera made me visible, made that moment permanent. Do you think what Tommy did was right?" Curtis smiled. "I think Doc Williams was a good man who spent his whole life teaching boys to be better. And I think when 10 men with hate in their hearts tried to take that away, one of those boys stood up. Was it right?" He shrugged. "I'm not smart enough to answer that. But I know this. After that night, Doc Williams trained in peace for 8 more years. And every time I mopped that gym floor, I remembered that sometimes justice doesn't come from a courtroom. Sometimes it comes from a 19-year-old kid who loves his coach more than he fears consequences." Curtis Reed died on August 14, 2011. He was buried in Forest Hill Cemetery in Kansas City. At his funeral, 53 people attended. Among them was a 61-year-old white man who walked with a cane and wore sunglasses. He didn't give his name. He placed a single white rose on the casket and whispered something nobody else could hear. Later, Curtis's daughter found a note in her father's Bible. It was dated February 19, 1988, 3 days after the gym incident. In her father's handwriting, "I kept that tape as proof. Proof that sometimes, just sometimes, somebody stands up." The tape still exists. Curtis's family donated it to the Kansas City Public Library in 2015. It's stored in the Special Collections Archive, available by appointment only. Researchers, historians, and boxing enthusiasts still request to view it. The footage shows exactly what Curtis Reed witnessed. 10 men entering a gym with hate. 1 man standing between them and his coach. 6 minutes that changed a city. And at the very end of the tape, after the violence, after the silence, you can hear Doc Williams's voice, quiet but clear. "Tommy, you didn't have to do that." And Tommy Morrison's response, "Yes, Doc, I did."